Hello and welcome to the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week. First up is Purging Stratholme. 3 mana paladin spell, deal 3 damage to all minions, and summon a 2/2 ghoul for your opponent for each minion that survives. So the big advantage for this card is that for only 3 mana, you're getting yourself a pretty decent board clear. The downside, of course, is that for any minion that survives, including your own minions, because this deals damage to every minion out on the board, you'll end up summoning a 2/2 for your opponent. You could play it and then clear some of the enemy minions, and then combo it with Consecration to then clear the 2/2s and hopefully clean up any of the other bigger minions. I think for the most part this is an anti-aggro tool to fight off any early game pushes, but it would really only shine in the early game and might be a little bit hard to use later on. I mean, a board clear is a board clear, so most of the time this is going to be pretty good, but in the early game this is especially going to be powerful. I think it's a creative approach to a board clear and a great design that Paladin could definitely use. Next up is Munchroot. 6 mana 7/7 druid legendary that reads, remove 1 word. Your minions cost 3 more. Now this card came out a while ago, I don't know how I ended up skipping it. To use this card you simply remove one of the words, so if you remove the word your, then minions cost 3 more, for both you and your opponent. If you remove the word more, then it's just your minions cost 3. You could use this in a big druid to play Malygos for only 3 mana. But then there are the other exceptions, where maybe you randomly summon this or recruit this onto the board. You're not going to be able to remove one of the words, so it ends up just reading your minions cost 3 more. And then with a card like Fandral, it's just minions cost 3. I think in terms of balancing, you have to give this card credit, it's like 9 months old, but powerful minions like Hadronox and the Undertaker are probably a little bit too powerful at just 3 mana. Especially when you consider that you can play Munchroot into the Undertaker into Naturalize all on the same turn. But regardless, it's a creative use of card text, and a card that definitely deserves the spot of one of the most upvoted cards. Next up is Newton. 1 mana, 1/2 neutral beast. Whenever a minion takes damage while attacking, it takes damage equal to its attack instead. So, for example, you can have a 2/3 minion out on the board, attack it into a 5/1, and instead of your 2/3 taking 5 damage, it's going to take its own 2 attack damage. So it's going to survive on the board as a 2/1. This can be a really big advantage if your minions have more health than attack. On the other hand though, let's say you have a 4/3 and you attack into a 1/1, instead you're going to be dealt 4, and your 4/3 is going to die. In any deck, this card could work as long as you understand the board state. If you happen to be in a place where you see some favorable trades, then you can just play Newton on that turn and then make some really valuable trades. And having Newton out on the board really changes the board state. It doesn't specify whether it's just friendly minions. Usually with these types of cards, they only really affect your side of the board, but I think it would be really cool if Newton affected both sides of the board, so your opponent would now have to play with this factored in. It may be good for you on one turn, but then your opponent might be able to take advantage of it and give themselves a good trade as well. It's a great idea. It's not really that hard to remove, so I think if opponents need to, they could get rid of this card to negate the effect. Either way, in most games you're going to be able to find a play that's going to get you some value from this card. It's a cute card, it's a pun. I would like to see this as a dragon though, just based off of the art and the flavor of this card, it just seems like more of a dragon to me. But a great card regardless. Next up is Watch and Learn. 1 mana Paladin Secret. When your opponent plays a Battlecry minion, add a Silverhand recruit to your hand, and it gains that Battlecry. So your mind may go to some super powerful secret right away, but you have to realize that there are a lot of weak and just average Battlecries. There's some to buff your minions, some to draw, some to deal a little bit of damage. And yeah, there are some better ones like destroy an enemy minion, but that means you actually have some sort of strategy when playing Watch and Learn. You don't want to chuck this up on turn 1 or 2 because you're probably going to get a bad Battlecry. And maybe if you know what deck your opponent is playing, you can strategically play it on a certain turn so that you gain a powerful Battlecry that they would play. On the other side of the board though, your opponent can still test for other secrets, and if they suspect it's Watch and Learn, they can wait and play one of their weaker Battlecries so you don't get that much value. But I think regardless of what Battlecry you get with this card, it is gonna be a pretty good card. Whether you run this card or end up just putting it into play, either way it's getting you a 1 mana 1/1 with some sort of Battlecry. On the low end, deal 1 damage isn't terrible, but the possibilities just go up from there. I like this secret because it gives you some more slower value. You don't really get any value out on the board immediately when the secret activates. Instead, you get a 1 mana play that will be able to hopefully get you some value and make up for the cost of the secret. I'm not really a fan of Paladin secrets too much, but I think I would enjoy watch and learn. Next up is Combat Medic. 3 mana 3/4 priest minion. This can attack friendly characters to restore health to them instead. So you can play this minion and attack normally into an enemy minion or the enemy hero. But you also have the option to attack into one of your friendly characters, and instead of dealing damage and taking some damage itself, it simply restores the amount of attack this has to that character. Without being buffed, that would heal for 3. And it's not just friendly minions because it says characters, so you can also use this to restore health to your own hero. Basically, you're playing this and you have the flexibility of either dealing out attack or healing your own minions. On some turns, it's going to be more valuable attacking to an enemy minion or just dealing damage to the enemy face, but other times you're going to have to forfeit that turn's attack to instead heal a friendly minion or your hero. The ability to make trades with minions and then heal them is a really strong aspect of priest gameplay. If you're constantly making trades and then healing your minions back up, then you're consistently keeping that value out on the board. And this fits so well that I think it would be a cool idea to make this sort of text a keyword specifically just for priest. I think it would be great if you printed a couple of different cards with this type of effect and just see how priest is able to use it. It's a great idea and I'd love to see it put in the game. Next up is Stolen Moments, 5 mana mage spell that reads, take an extra turn, that turn ends immediately. You would pay the 5 mana, and then it would literally cycle through a turn and not let you do any actions. But there are a couple things that would take place. First, you would draw a card and you'd also gain a mana crystal. Just those 2 things alone are pretty impressive. But mainly, this card is to activate end of turn and beginning of turn cards. Maybe you can summon Ragnaros, get Drakari Enchanter out on the board, and then play this card to deal 32 damage to your opponent. Drakari Enchanter was super hyped up when it was introduced, but really it's seen no play. There are some really powerful at the end of turn cards, but it seems like even getting twice the value from them isn't even worth the 3 mana. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a competitive card, but I still think it's an interesting concept trying to help these type of cards. It just shows that you can take a turn and not even do anything and still get some value with this card. Next up is Scale of the Worthy. 2 mana paladin spell, give a minion +4 attack. If it doesn't have the highest attack out on the board, destroy it. You're able to use it on a friendly minion and get a big advantage, but you have to make sure that it's the highest attack minion. On the other hand, you can use this on an enemy minion that you want to destroy, as long as when you give it 4 attack, it still doesn't have the highest attack out on the board. And I would prefer to balance this card more as a removal card. So maybe give a minion +3 attack would make it easier to destroy an enemy minion, and also make it less likely abused by aggro. You'll have to let me know, maybe it's perfectly balanced. That was a nice pun, I liked that. And last up, we have the weekly design competition. The Custom Hearthstone subreddit has weekly designs where there's some sort of requirement. You make your cards, and then you submit them in the comments of the post, and they vote on who wins that week. This week, the task is to design a card that provides a buff or debuff while under a condition. These are ongoing effects, so if X is happening, then Y. A good example is the old Enrage mechanic, where when a minion was damaged, it would have +3 attack. So the card I designed was Egg Caretaker. 5 mana, 5/6 neutral beast with taunt, and if you control a 0 attack minion, at the end of your turn, summon another random one. So obviously I had eggs in mind when designing this card. But what's interesting is with this new expansion, there's now spirits in every class, which means that each class has a unique 0 attack minion specifically made for them. And 0 attack minions in general are just really unique. There's eggs, there's spirits, but then there's also cards like Lorewalker Cho, Doomsayer, and Alarmobot. And another unique thing about these 0 attack cards is they're all valued between 1 and 5 mana. So it's not like summoning a random demon where sometimes you're going to get a 9-drop and sometimes a 1-drop. I would definitely use this in an egg deck, but you could end up getting spirits from other classes and trying to take advantage of them, or just any of these really unique 0 attack cards. A Caretaker would require you to use some sort of 0 attack minion, or it could be the spirit that you already plan to use in your deck. I just think it would be interesting to have a card that gets more zero attack minions out on the board, and honestly, I feel like because these minions are usually so low value, you could probably even buff Egg Caretaker a little bit more. Perhaps give it an extra stat here or there. Let me know what you think about the design of Egg Caretaker. I'll put a link to where you can make cards and submit for the weekly competition in the description below. I'm also doing a series about misunderstood cards, so if you want to check that out, it's here on the screen. That's all the cards for this week, and until next time, ta-ta.